I want to start talking about some plugins that I find very useful that I think you guys should use too, unless you don't want to, in which case I don't want to know you. So yeah, let's start with this. Okay, so Dave mentioned earlier about the undo history, where largely we think about it in a linear fashion. But one thing that's really nice about Vim is that it doesn't treat your undo history as strictly linear. Every time you go back to a previous state and make a change, it actually branches off, so you get a nice tree structure of your undo history. So imagine I've written this terrible function that doesn't do what you might want it to do. And we decided let's fix it a little bit by switching this to the appropriate base case. But then we decide, I don't know if that's actually what I wanted to do or not, and imagine this was a bigger program. So we undo to go back to the change that we had before. And then we go ahead and, I don't know, we start writing some more code for some stuff. This is SML code, imagine. So now if we tried to undo to get back to that change that we made, we can't. Because when we went back and undid. How do I control? What is the control key?
It's labeled. It's labeled control.
It's not. Okay. I don't know how to use your computer. Okay. So there's a plugin called GOnNew, and what that does is it visualizes the undo history. So you can see that when we were at this point, we had made a change which caused a branch in the undo history. And we're existing primarily on this main line here. So as you hit undo, it bops you along that undo path. But if you want to get to something that you had done on a branch, this visualizes it very nicely. So you can see that here we are on a different path, and we can see there is that change that we had made that would be lost otherwise. So, and this also has a diff tool built in, so if you're doing a lot of code, you could run a diff based on what happened at this point in your undo branch and where you are currently. There's not a nice way to merge it in right now, unfortunately, that I'm aware of, but it's really rad. There's been times it's kind of hard to come up with a use case, like that one was kind of contrived, but when it saves your ass, it saves your ass. Cool. One other plugin that I find really useful is NerdTree, which opens up a, here's the directory we're working in, and here's all the files that exist in this directory. And it allows you to open them in new tabs or something. I don't think there's anything in this, but then we could cycle through the tabs that we have open. And one thing you can note here too is that even though we're doing this over SSH, we still have tabs, and we're still able to use them. Similar to some of the stuff that we saw in Emacs, there's also a really great plugin called SuperTab, which is a contextual tab completion plugin. So it will, based on what you've typed already in the text file, if you were to start typing something and hit tab, you'll see the only thing I've typed in this file that starts with L is the word length. If we had typed some more stuff like long and lime, I don't know. And then we hit tab when we started typing L, it would give us all of the things that we have typed in before. And that's nice if you are working in a language, something like SML, where there's not really a good tool set in place to give you intelligent autocomplete. But there is another plugin that I really recommend called Clang Complete, which uses the Clang compiler to do stuff to your code while you're writing it, and then it gives you really nice tab completion. And unfortunately, the machine I'm SSH'd into doesn't have Clang installed, or at least it doesn't hook in right. So I can't show you Clang Complete, but I assure you it's really cool. So check that out. And another plugin worth checking out that I won't talk about is called Syntactic, which gives you syntax feedback, so you don't actually need to know how to write the language. It just will yell at you if it's going to be wrong. Though historically, one of the big... That's fine. Get out of there. One of the big gripes that people have about Vim and the plugins is that it's really hard to manage them. You have a whole bunch of competing paths that you have to manage, and you have to worry collisions, and you have to figure out where am I supposed to save this Vim file. But all is not lost. There is a great extension for Vim that you need to install if you're using plugins. I'm not going to talk about how to install it because it's really straightforward. It's called Pathogen. And what Pathogen allows you to do is in your .vim directory out of your home directory, you're able to put a directory called bundle. And in here you can just install all of the plugins that you might want to use in their own directory, I suppose, and Pathogen will handle automatically making sure that the path is cool and runs them all. So if there was a... How do I get rid of this?
Just hit the X.
I don't, okay. So if, say there was a Git plugin that I thought was really interesting on GitHub somewhere, you could just clone directly into your bundle directory, git clone, and boom, it's installed, which is awesome. And it's especially nice if you're writing your own plugins. You don't need to constantly call source. You can just drop them in here and it will work. Yes?
Have you heard of Bundle?
I have heard of Bundle.
Yeah, it does the same thing and you can just have a plugins file.
And you can just have a plugins file? Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't used Bundle. Do you know how it compares to
Yeah, so you
Pathogen?
put a bunch of Git repos in a file, and it'll
Mhm.
actually parse through that file
Oh,
and
yeah,
clone them
that's
all to your bundle directory.
Yeah, that is really, I have seen that. That is really cool. That's something worth checking out. I haven't used it, but check it out. Okay, so there's a quick kind of whirlwind tour of plugins that I think are useful, but how do I get to the thing that I want it to be at?
The slideshow?
Yes.
Alt tab or Command tab.
Okay. Okay.
To the picture.
Okay, that's intuitive. Okay, so one of the things that's really nice about Vim is that you can extend it really easily with this thing called Vim Script, which is really just Vim with some stuff that they've decided was nice over the years and kind of slammed into this package that's pseudo-usable. So it is actually a complete programming language. You can do things in it. It's dynamically and weakly typed, and it's got most of the things you're used to, though perhaps in ways you are not used to seeing them. There are variables. You have to explicitly tell Vim Script where they're located. What's the scope of them? If you have a global variable, you have to prefix it with the G:. Function arguments, you have to prefix with the A:, and these are all here. You can read them. But you get nice things that you wouldn't get elsewhere, like you have window local variables, or you have tab local variables, or buffer local variables. And you can set them using the let command, you can get rid of them using the unlet command, and you can get rid of it even if it doesn't exist with the unlet bang command. If you try to unlet something that doesn't exist without the bang, I don't want to say Vim crashes, but you get like a spew of red text at the bottom and you don't understand what's going on. You get stuff and you don't get things. You get 32-bit integers. You get floats unless you don't. You get strings and you get function references, which is what it sounds like. It's a reference to a function. What I mean by you get floats but you also don't get floats is you have to explicitly be using a version of Vim that has been built with float support. And I don't entirely know why, but I don't think it's standard. If you can come up with a reason justifying that, more power to you. You also don't get booleans, but you get a lot of truthy and falsy valued things. Everything is true except 0. And all strings are true unless they happen to start with the character 0. So, watch yourself. There have been times that I have not known what was going on. You also get lists, you also get dictionaries, and they're actually quite nice. If you know how to use Python lists and dictionaries, they function exactly the same. I think they're kind of a late add to the Vim script, and I think they've stolen them completely from Python, which is cool. You also get if statements. You gotta note the end if. You also get for loops, but you don't get the standard for I, int I equals 0, I plus plus. You just have for in for each loops. The first one is nice. The second one, also nice. In this, if this is binding A to 1 and B to 2 on the first times of the for loop, and 3 and 4 on the second times. You can also get while loops if you have a use for them. Don't know when that would be, but they look like that. They're pretty standard. Note that everything also ends in an end, whatever it is. You've got try catch. The catch is optional, but I really recommend that you do it. Finally is there, you have to do it. Alright, you also get functions. Thank you. Thank God. Thank Vim for having the foresight to give us functions. If you're defining a function, you use the function keyword. But don't do that. Use function bang. Function bang says, hey, if this function already exists, ignore that one and use this one. So that seems like that might be dangerous. But if you source your file multiple times, like if you're working on a plugin or something, or someone else has written that same function, yours is more important. So make sure yours gets in, and if you try to define a function when it's already been defined, Vim gives you that gross vomit all over the place. What might be counterintuitive is how you call functions inside of Vim scripts, and in Vim in general. You have to use the call keyword in front of the function, or it doesn't work. It seems unnecessary, but it feels right after a while. You can also delete functions. That's pretty cool. You can just throw that everywhere. Use a function and then blow it up. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but have fun. Yes?
Can a function delete itself?
Yes, a function can delete itself. I don't recommend you try it. If you give it arguments, that should be pretty clear what this is. You have an argument, it's called arg1. This means any number of arguments. So if you were selecting the arguments inside of these functions, you could say a colon arg1 would get you directly at that, or you could say a colon 10,000 to give you the 10,000th element of that if it exists. If it doesn't exist, you should have checked. That's pretty much it, but let's write some quick Vim script to do some stuff that would be a terrible thing to do, but it can demonstrate that you can do stuff in Vim scripts. So I'm learning. Okay. So what I want to do is write a plugin that allows me to cycle through various syntax highlighting structures. So let's start off by setting a variable, let's call it langs, and I'm not prefixing it with anything because it's going to be on the outer structure and therefore a global by default. So let's come up with a list of languages that we want to cycle through. Let's go from best to worst. SML, best. Haskell, that's pretty good. Python. C. That's pretty good. Vim is alright. And Ruby is the worst language that has ever been invented, so let's stick it at the end there. Ruby's great. Ruby's fine. And let's just do this really poorly. Let's also have an index in here that we can use. It's going to be a global thing that we'll update throughout while we're executing. So let's make a function, and function bang, because I don't know if anyone else has decided to write a function called langset. It would probably be a bad idea, so if they wrote it, they don't know what they're doing and their function should be deleted. Okay. And what I want this to do is set the syntax highlighting in the language that Vim is working in. So Vim already has a command that does that, and I can call that, it's called setf, and then we can give it a language. So setf SML, or setf Vim. So let's call that. We're going to say execute, because that's how you spell it. And since I want to give this sent as a whole string to the execute command, I'm going to start off having setf being a string with a space. I'm going to concatenate with that the lang that I'm assuming is coming in as an argument. And so what that's going to do is it's going to cat the setf together with the argument and then execute the built-in Vim command by parsing that string. And we might also want it to spit out what the language that we just set to, so we don't get confused. Let's make another function. This will show us some more stuff that we can do. Let's call it cycle that syntax, because that's how we name things in the real world. Okay, end function. So let's define a function local variable language, and we'll get that from our global variable langs, which I think is what I called it, and we'll get it from the global index. So there's the language that will pop in. We can then call the function that we set before, langset, with that, nope, do that one. And probably update our global index to, you get some nice stuff here, kind of. Our index +1, and don't overflow, so we'll mod it by the length of our global langs. Cool. That's reasonable for now. So let's source this. So this is a Vim command to say that I want you to give me everything in this file. And then we can call our cycle, why are you tab completing? Unknown, what did I do?
Did you write?
I don't think I did. Yeah, okay, yeah, we gotta save stuff. That's nice. Yeah, boom. So now we're in SML, now we're in Haskell. Let's get all the way back to, what? Oh, thank you, Clang Complete. It was trying to autocomplete. C. Call that. Alright, back to Vim. Okay, that's nice, but having to, if you're going to be packaging this and sending it to people, it's kind of, it's not really nice to force them to have to type call and then pass things. So we can set up inside of our Vim script a new command that the user can use. And we'll do that by saying command, I really mean it, make this a command, and delete any other one that happens to be this. It's a command that takes 0 arguments, the number of args is equal to 0. We'll call it cycle command, and what that command will do is call cycle that syntax with no arguments. And if you had a function with many arguments, you could have something like, this isn't going to work, like n args equals 1, the name of your command, we'll call some function that has to start with an uppercase, I didn't mention that, and we'll pass in fargs, the arguments that were passed to us when this command was run. So if we write that, source that, what did I call it? Now we can just run the command that we've defined. What are you doing? No! Oh, because it thinks we're in a different language and it's doing syntax checking for me. Thank you. Apparently it does work. Cool. Rad. So if we wanted to package this up for distribution as a pathogen tool, we could make a directory, let's call it syntax blarg man. And we'll make a new let's make a new directory plugin. Inside of that plugin directory, we'll move our plugin that we just made. So let's move our syntax blah plugin, and then move that plugin inside of their syntax blargs man. So now, if we were to copy that into our Vim bundle directory, what is this? Oh, I guess that would be nice if I told it what I was moving. Yeah, so okay, move that into the bundle. So now, if we're in Vim, it's source that, and we can call that command directory directly. So that's really cool. What else did I want to say about that? Oh, one thing to mention, I don't think Dave mentioned the Vim RC, your config. That's where you can put a whole bunch of commands that you want. Where am I?
Your home directory.
No. Okay, there. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so here is my Vim config. Here's the pathogen stuff you need to set up, and I got some stuff that I have to deal with white space and a whole bunch of stuff, and not really important. I'll let you fight with your setting up your own Vim RC. But here is some commands that, okay, here's something. Say we wanted to, every time we started our program, we wanted to started Vim, we wanted to automatically call that command that we just set up. We could do something like that, but Vim is going to yell at us because it's going to source this, your Vim RC, before it sources any of the plugins. So a way around that is you could use the auto commands. What auto command does is it waits for some event to happen, and when that event starts, it will execute the command. So if we wait until the Vim enter action to occur, when that happens, it'll call our new command. So you can set up all your stuff by doing that, and Vim will like you again. And I don't want that because that's terrible. So that's Vim Script in a whirlwind thing. Any questions about stuff? All right. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you.